In this episode, I'm going to tell you what I said to one of my clients, a 62-year-old man, and how that made him break down in tears, sobbing for several minutes, and what happened to him after that. Are you somebody who cries a lot, or are you somebody who tries really hard not to cry? In this episode, we're exploring the transformative power of tears. Hello again, everyone. I'm Mary Fielder. Welcome to my channel, Great Light Rising, where we explore everything that happens to us on the spiritual healing journey.
When I am conducting a healing session, clients sometimes become emotional and shed tears. This could be during a Reiki treatment or a homeopathy consultation. What makes them cry is either the energy itself, rippling through them, peeling back layers of emotion trapped in their auric field, or because the conversation we have touches on their sensitivities, their soft, vulnerable, painful feelings, long buried and forgotten, but not yet released from the energy field. Crying is especially common for first-timers who have not done energy healing work before, and especially if they carry pent-up energy from trauma, frustration, and anger, or simply the general stress of being alive in our crazy world. You don't have to come from an abusive or traumatic background to need healing. We all need healing at some stage in our spiritual journey. I hope you understand that I don't set out to make anybody cry. That's not my intention. Yet when they do, I feel happy. Not happy about somebody being in pain. Happy because I know this means they are having a cathartic healing moment, and that's my job. To bring about healing moments, one after another, one session at a time, until they feel complete, whole, and integrated, until they no longer feel the need to come for healing. But for the person shedding tears during a healing session, this sometimes makes them feel embarrassed. It can make you feel quite vulnerable when you break down in front of a stranger you haven't learned to trust. Crying is often seen as a weakness, and many people have been trained to hide their feelings, bury their grievances, and keep up the appearance of being cool, calm, and collected, even when they don't feel it inside. This is what suppression is. Suppression of feelings across a lifetime fosters physical disease. It fosters anxiety and depression. It can lead to feelings of low self-worth and lack of confidence. It can cause gallbladder issues, ulcers, acid reflux, teeth grinding, intestinal disorders, migraines, kidney failure, liver disease, overeating, and addiction. There are many people who have not shed a tear in forever, and they pride themselves on being strong, but deep inside there is pain and frustration, often anger, buried so far down they no longer know it's there, but it's eating away at them slowly, insidiously wreaking a havoc that grows quietly, unnoticed until suddenly, in old age, a disease leaps out at you as if from nowhere, a cancer diagnosis, gallstones, endometriosis. So when someone is able to shed tears in a healing session, it's a sign of deep emotional release, which leads to spiritual transformation and can also lead to physical healing, true healing, not the nominal symptom suppression that happens when you take medicine, but real healing that allows you to get off your medications. So you see, far from exposing your vulnerability, releasing the stresses of suppressed emotions through tears can actually strengthen you because toxins associated with the suppression are released along with the tears. So it doesn't bother me at all when people cry in one of my healing sessions. On the contrary, I see it for what it is, a sign that we have touched on the root of the problem, the emotional root cause that underlies whatever has gone wrong physically or mentally. I'll give you an example. Harry was coming to see me for certain physical ailments. He wanted to reduce his body aches and pains and take care of a few other physical ailments. During the course of our conversation, he spoke to me about his love of birds and that his passion was collecting feathers from majestic predatory birds such as eagles and falcons. A shaman he worked with shared some rare hawk feathers with him, and this gesture deeply touched his soul. He wanted to showcase these feathers in a beautiful vase. He had found just the right one, beautifully crafted by a nature lover who had etched a feather design into the colored glass vase. Now, this vase was a little bit expensive, and Harry wasn't used to buying himself expensive presents, but he bought it anyway. While telling me this, I nodded in acknowledgement and said that I think the vase was worth it even though it was expensive. I said this because it did in fact seem to exactly resonate with his purpose. The etched feathers really appealed to his purpose of keeping feathers in the vase. When I told him I thought the vase was worth the money, he looked up at me. No one in Harry's 60 years on this earth had ever told him that he was right about something. His mother had only ever told him what he was doing wrong. His father disapproved of him and told him he was worthless. While he was looking at me in disbelief for approving his expensive purchase, I looked him in the eye and said, "Harry, you are worth it." At this, Harry broke down crying. He wept for several minutes. After the release, the tension in his body and his face had visibly released. He looked more relaxed and as though the dawn of a newer, lighter energy had entered his soul.
By the way, the homeopathic remedy I gave Harry was peregrine falcon. It's made from the feather of a peregrine falcon according to classical homeopathic protocol. And in homeopathy, we have the notion of like cures like. That's actually what homeopathy means. Homeo means same and pathy means treatment. So saying treatment like cures like. It was an easy choice for me to go with peregrine falcon because of Harry's deep resonance with birds of prey. And in particular, as he was talking to me, synchronistically, peregrine falcon kept showing up for him in his life, and he had one that lived across from him that he saw regularly from his window while he was at home.
The energy of peregrine falcon really helped Harry get clarity on who he is and his own sense of self-worth, as well as helping to reduce the physical symptoms of pain in his body, skin irritation, and the heavy emotional pain in his chest. A person with a balanced heart chakra feels worthy, useful, and takes care of their own needs. They don't need other people to validate them. A person with an unbalanced heart chakra feels unworthy and doesn't know how to put themselves first. They may have been raised to believe that it's selfish to put their own needs above others, or that they are a nobody, that they don't matter. But ultimately, this can lead to emotional burnout and feelings of deep unworthiness, frustration, and anger. In our society, we are trained to serve the whole, to serve others. But this is truly only possible if you have taken care of your own needs. You are worthy simply because you exist. Because you exist, you are just as worthy as every other human that exists. You are just as important as every important person you ever met. Because self-worth is not about being rich or famous or politically powerful. Self-worth is simply about being. Do you not agree that every single baby born on earth deserves to feel worthy, and that includes you, your parents, and your children? When you are in joy and feeling happy and fulfilled, you radiate that energy outwards and everyone feels it. When you are unhappy, feeling used and abused, or feeling that you have sacrificed your joy to serve others, then you radiate those feelings outwards, and that doesn't serve anyone. So it is only when you come from a place of self-fulfillment that you can truly serve others. You can give away what is left over. If you give everything away, there is nothing left for you, and there is nothing left for anyone else. When we cry from the heart. We cry because our heart is breaking, or because something touched us deeply in our heart chakra, a note of resonance. This is why when someone says something kind to us, and we are not used to hearing kind words, it brings up a surge of emotion, and sometimes we tear up. Our soul knows we are worthy even if our physical self doesn't know it. And that soul energy is touched through the heart chakra. This is a healing moment. In my story above, Harry had a sudden realization that the way his parents had treated him throughout his life had nothing to do with his inherent worthiness. It was just how they made him feel, but not what he deserved. This was the spark of enlightenment that truly set him on his healing journey. This is what healing is all about. When this type of energetic release takes place in the heart chakra, your energy field can begin. It's recalibration into a stronger, healthier framework, supporting your physical self in a more reliable way. Let's talk about what is physically happening when we cry. Our tears are salty. When we cry, we are releasing salt and water. Tears are produced by the lacrimal glands, located above each eye. They drain through tiny ducts into the nasal cavity, which is why your nose runs when you cry. The first type, basal tears, is when your eyes water to lubricate themselves. You know when you get something in your eye, or if your eyes get too dry. The second kind are called reflex tears, and this is when you are triggered to cry by something getting in your eyes, like onions or smoke that are irritants to your eyes. The third kind, emotional tears, are the kind we are talking about here. Emotional tears are triggered by feelings. Interestingly, only emotional tears have a significant biochemical profile. So from now on, when I talk about tears, I am talking only about the emotional kind. The first thing to notice is that tears are salty because they literally contain sodium and chloride, which is salt in effect. They also contain potassium. These three minerals are known as electrolytes. But tears also contain hormones, in particular the stress hormone cortisol. Additionally, tears contain other stress-related hormones such as ACTH, which regulates cortisol production, and prolactin, which is linked to the body's stress response. Tears also contain an endorphin called leucine enkephalin, which is a natural painkiller and mood regulator. So what is actually happening when we cry, and why are all these chemicals found in our tears? When we are under stress, these chemicals build up in our bodies, and our hormonal system becomes unbalanced. Crying is a biochemical discharge of built-up hormones and endorphins, which ultimately leads us back to a calmer and more balanced state. In actuality, crying is a huge stress release. We are literally releasing stress-related chemicals, and that's why you invariably feel better after a good cry. The act of crying is stimulated by the parasympathetic nervous system and signifies a moment when the body shifts from being activated from a state of fight or flight, brought on by being under a stress of some kind, into a physical release of stress. There are times when we have been under stress for so long that we no longer realize our bodies are under stress. This was the case with Harry. Mentally, he didn't know he was under that much stress, but physically, his body was reacting to the stress throughout his life by having heart attacks. Crying is a much better option than a heart attack, and if you are someone who holds tears in because you think it makes you strong, I hope you will consider that. You see, emotions are not just thoughts and feelings, they are actual physiological states, which means they are states within the body which change as your emotions change. When you are experiencing a certain emotion, a specific set of hormones, endorphins, and so on are controlling the state of the body. We could say the health of the body is under control of the physiological effects of that emotion. So when you are happy, the body is balanced, and when you are sad, the body is unbalanced. Let's be a bit more specific. When you experience grief or heartbreak, your heart rate changes, your breathing becomes more shallow or irregular, your throat tightens, and your chest constricts. The vagus nerve is central to your nervous system, and in particular the parasympathetic nervous system, which plays a crucial role in stress response. When you are in a state of grief or heartbreak, the vagus nerve response can be to create feelings of numbness, detachment, and fatigue. You shut down emotionally. Crying causes you to take deep breaths, oxygenating the whole body. Vocal sobbing stimulates your vagus nerve, which in turn releases the constriction in your throat. Your muscles relax. You release the feelings of numbness and detachment. In other words, crying physically undoes all the physical tension in the body that was created by being under emotional stress. When you feel like crying but you suppress your urge to cry, you can get a lump in your throat, a tight chest, and may feel pressure behind your eyes. Suppressing the urge to cry is itself a form of stress, and the physiological state of the body reflects that. So the emotional release of a good cry is not psychological, it is physiological, meaning it actually creates change in the physical body for the better. If you don't like crying in public, and no one can blame you for that, sneak off to a private place and allow yourself to have a good cry. You are not indulging yourself or feeling sorry for yourself or wallowing in self-pity. You are healing your body and reducing the potential for future illnesses such as lung disease, heart disease, and diseases of the blood, kidneys, liver, and gallbladder. You are not so much showing signs of weakness as you are showing signs of knowledge, of understanding how the body works. Crying creates social bonding. Here's another aspect to crying, and I think this is an important one. And I'll emphasize that I am talking about crying in a healing session or with a trusted friend. Not about breaking down in public or at work where you might be ridiculed, pitied, or considered unprofessional. There is something very primitive relating to social bonding that happens when we cry. Crying increases the production of oxytocin in the human body, a hormone that promotes relationship building. Oxytocin plays a central role in social bonding by enhancing attachment, trust, and emotional connection across various relationships. It promotes bonding between mothers and infants, romantic partners, and even friends. It is especially critical during the early formation of relationships and helps individuals become selective in their social attachments. Oxytocin enhances our ability to form positive feelings around our social interactions and works together with dopamine to create feelings of pleasure. You might notice that after you have had a good cry on someone's shoulder, you feel a positive attachment to that person and develop fondness for them. This is not just because they were nice and listened to you. It's because the oxytocin and dopamine strengthen the social bond between you. Oxytocin also helps the emotional body to self-regulate after a stress spike. It helps to prevent depression from settling in after a loss, for example. Oxytocin doesn't just rise after crying. It also rises when we hug someone or show affection, whether platonic or during sexual intimacy. Some people say that oxytocin helps to form the emotional glue in a relationship, reducing our prejudices and increasing our affection. Summing up the effects of a good cry, we see that several physiological mechanisms are happening at once. Let's back up and talk about what happens in the brain at the moment we are triggered and start to cry. The amygdala, the fight or flight center of the brain, is activated. This shuts off the prefrontal cortex, which is the brain's center for logical thinking. We move into a state of being overcome by emotion instead of rational thinking. This is why it's hard to control crying once the floodgates open, so to speak. After we release some tears, this process reverses. First, the parasympathetic nervous system kicks into action. This makes us feel softer, less fatigued, more relaxed, and more relieved. Secondly, there is an endorphin release. This reduces our emotional and physical pain. Third, there is an oxytocin increase which helps us bond to those around us. Fourth, stress hormones like cortisol begin to decrease, releasing our feelings of stress. Finally, following the emotional discharge that was triggered by a fight or flight response to stress, the prefrontal cortex kicks back into action, regaining regulation of our logical and thinking brain. In short, we come to our senses and we are able to think clearly again. We feel more grounded, more centered, less reactive. Crying, especially when witnessed by someone we are close to, increases bonding hormones. From a somatic perspective, as we have seen, the chest and throat are primary emotional holding zones. Emotions such as love, grief, and forgiveness are often expressed in the physical body as heart complaints. Being unable to express your feelings, either because you are holding them in or because you don't want to upset other people, this manifests in the throat as tightness or soreness or a little cough that never seems to go away. All of these physiological symptoms release when the emotions themselves are released through crying. The chest relaxes and breathing deepens. There can be feelings of openness, of expansion, tenderness, and clarity, a feeling of being more aligned with your own truth. Stress energy, created by negative emotion, is the most depleting energy your body can experience. It depletes you physically, mentally, and emotionally. Similarly, emotional suppression is one of the most debilitating things that can happen to you. It literally consumes your energy, leaving you feeling tired, lethargic, depressed, and depleted. The body manifests what the mind cannot process. Heart attacks are sometimes the result of poor diet, and we should not downplay the role of diet in our health. Heart attacks result from a lifetime of suppressed feelings that we don't know how to feel and we don't know how to integrate. Releasing your suppressed emotions by having a good cry is healthy, healing, and cathartic. It can lead you to new levels of realization, as with Harry, who suddenly had the realization that he is worthy, that he is worth it, and that everything that happened to him in his childhood was the result of his parents' lack of self-worth, ignorance, and inability to love, not his inherent unworthiness. When emotions are suppressed, your perception narrows. When emotion is processed and released, perception widens. After a healing cry, people often say, "I needed that," or "I see it differently now," or "I feel lighter." At the mind-body-spirit level, there is an integration happening. The mind releases, so the body releases. The nervous system resets, the spirit returns to wholeness. You could say tears create a bridge from overwhelm to integration. They dissolve resistance. Through becoming vulnerable, you make yourself more approachable to those who witness your emotional breakdown. We all feel vulnerable inside, and we are all intimidated by people who seem to go through life without having emotional ups and downs, those who appear to be keeping everything under control. When they show us signs of chinks in their armor, it makes them human, approachable, relatable, and that tends to make us like them more rather than less. Rather than seeing them as weak, we perceive them as one of us, as someone who has sensitivity of feelings, and that means they are capable of compassion, of empathy, and of affection. Some people pay hundreds of dollars for healing sessions, for therapy, for medicines, or therapeutic experiences, when sometimes all they need is a good old cry. When was the last time you had a good cry? How did it make you feel better? Did it help to bond you with someone? Were you raised to believe that crying is a sign of weakness or a healthy release of stress? Let me know in the comments. In the beginning of this episode, I said we are looking at the connection between crying and spiritual ascension. I hope you have seen that through the healing release of pent-up or suppressed emotions, through the cathartic experience of a good cry, our bodies and spirits begin to reframe into a higher vibration of self. This is how crying creates the transformation that leads to ascension. Ascension is the product of complete healing, and crying is a bridge to healing. I'm not suggesting that we spend many hours crying, or that we cry about every little thing, but that we should allow ourselves to cry when the feelings overtake us, instead of holding back the tears. While crying might feel vulnerable, it is helping you heal. Allowing yourself to be vulnerable is itself a sign of healing. It takes a certain level of confidence, which represents high vibration energy, to let yourself be seen as vulnerable. Energy healing, such as Reiki, will sometimes bring about a spontaneous release of pent-up emotion. If you still find yourself unable to have a good cry, consider having a healing session such as a Reiki treatment. It will help to release trapped emotions and trapped energy that are preventing you from reaching your frequency potential, the highest expression of yourself. The moment at which you discover the light within, your power within, and your power to create for yourself a life in which you learn to hold the frequency of joy and happiness, maybe not every minute of every day, but longer and longer each day and more frequently.
Hey, that's all I have for you in this episode. If you got something from it, if it helped you in some way, please give me a like, leave me a comment. How did it help you? And if you know of somebody who does hold back the tears, who you feel needs a good cry, please share this video with them. Maybe it will help them. That's the only reason that I do this work. In the meantime, thank you for listening and watching. Stay well, walk in the light, my friend, and I'll talk to you again in the next one.